Philosophers of the past studied the nature of learning and developed tests to determine the reality of ideas. One such test, Occam's razor, states that among competing ideas, the most simple is most likely to be real. Philosophy is very subjective and can easily be misapplied. For example, many use the principle of Occam's razor to suggest that Einstein's theory of relativity is more likely to be real than the preceding Lorentz theory, which predicts the same thing. This does seem so when you describe the Lorentz theory as requiring a fixed frame of reference in space and objects that change shape in just the right amount to force relativistic measurements. However, the Lorentz theory can be stated much more simply. It is simply that the final irreducible constituent of all physical reality is the electromagnetic field. Physical reality so comprised must distort exactly as observed when considered to exist in a fixed inertial frame of reference. At the turn of the 20th century, most physicists believed that there was a special inertial frame fixed in space and that the final irreducible constituent of all physical reality was the electromagnetic field. When we modify the Lorentz theory to remove the luminiferous ether, space itself becomes empty nothingness and so cannot expand or distort in any way. When the Hubble Space Telescope was trained on an empty patch of sky, many galaxies showed up after a timed exposure. According to the red shift in the light from these galaxies, most were moving away at speeds faster than the speed of light. If space is empty nothingness, it cannot expand. Nothing can exceed the speed of light, so the red shift in light from distant galaxies must have a different cause than expansion of space, as current theory suggests, or a Doppler shift as previously thought. Many suspect that the cause of the red shift is gravity. It works like this. Physicists have known for more than 100 years that ordinary light, photons, both create gravity and respond to gravity. Sir Arthur Eddington published an account of gravity as refraction of light in 1920. Several present-day physicists independently arrived at that same conclusion. The path of light bends toward the direction where the speed of light is slower. Matter comprised of light must gravitate toward that same direction. When the gravity that photons create causes a change of momentum in objects, conservation of energy demands an exchange of energy. This exchange of energy shows up as a red shift in photons that create the gravity that caused the momentum change. The amount of redshift relates to the density of objects in the photon's path through space. Some places in space are more dense than others. Galaxies spew out dense beams of ions and gamma energy perpendicular to their rotation plane. Photons that pass through those beams should be redshifted more than photons that have a clear path. Maybe quasars enjoy a special relationship with beams from galactic centers. There should be quasars that change the amount of their redshift as their light path changes over long periods of time. The late Halton ARP suggested that galaxies emitted quasars from galactic centers. Newly created matter would naturally have a lower frequency interaction. This has never been observed, however, with newly created matter in laboratories. Maybe there's a better explanation. As previously stated, maybe it is the path of light through space that determines the amount of redshift. The electromagnetic gravity scenario only works if the speed of light varies. Observation shows that the speed of light does vary. For example, gravity slows the speed of light. Two constants of nature directly determine the speed of light, but these two constants are only constant in the absence of electric and magnetic amplitude change. Since there is no place in the universe where electric and magnetic amplitude change are absent, there is no place in the universe where these constants are actually constant. The speed of light is equal to 1 divided by the square root of the product of electric permittivity and magnetic permeability. The path of light bends toward the direction where the speed of light is slower. The amount of electric and magnetic amplitude change present in an area determine the speed of light. The more electromagnetic activity present, the slower the speed of light. Engineers recognize this as negative feedback, so we come to realize that gravity alters the impedance of space, and the impedance of space determines the speed of light, which determines the amount of gravity. This negative feedback of gravity upon gravity is a new hypothesis. Another way to explain it is that we know that gravity slows time. Time is a component of acceleration, so acceleration must be less as gravity increases. We know that acceleration is more as gravity increases, just not as much more as it would be without the negative feedback. This negative feedback gives the force of gravity a non-linear effect. Jets of ionic debris and gamma radiation spew from galactic centers and accumulate in huge bubbles around galaxies. These bubbles may be as much as 1,000,000 light years in size. When this and the negative feedback is taken into account, anomalies in the rotation speeds of galaxies go away. Einstein cited the orbit of the planet Mercury as evidence for his general theory of relativity. This works for Mercury, but not for the rotation speed of galaxies. Although Einstein himself said that black holes cannot form, others have used the theory of general relativity to predict the existence of black holes. Gravity, such as we describe here, does not permit black holes for two obvious reasons. Since electromagnetic amplitude change causes gravity, and this electromagnetic activity cannot escape black holes, gravity cannot escape either. Negative feedback also forbids black hole formation. Whatever exists at galactic centers seems to produce massive amounts of gravity. But is it really gravity that slings stars around so violently at the center of the Milky Way galaxy? Perhaps electric charge contributes to the violence. Electric current and magnetic fields pervade the universe. These are orders of magnitude more powerful than gravity. Movement of charge produces magnetic fields. Stars strip atoms of their electrons and so exist as ionic charged plasma. Our sun has a positive charge and emits charged protons that we call the solar wind. These protons accelerate away from the positively charged sun at a rate that leaves sun at about 1,000,000 miles per hour. When the solar wind passes Earth, its speed has increased to about 2,000,000 miles per hour. This dynamic cosmos view shows a non-expanding, infinitely large universe in which electric and magnetic forces dominate. Galaxies strip matter from stars and squirt it out perpendicular to the galactic spin plane. Rotation of charged particles in the supermassive ionic soup at galactic centers create magnetic fields that direct the radiation. Galaxies thus recycle matter to energy and energy to matter in a never-ending process. Newton described gravity before Maxwell described electromagnetism, so the workings of the universe were first described using only gravity. Academic lag delayed the recognition that electric and magnetic forces dominate the cosmos. Cosmologists still try to explain the workings of the universe using only the force of gravity, but we now know that the electromagnetic force is 1,000 billion 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 times more powerful than gravity. Sir Arthur Eddington published a paper in 1920 that showed how gravity could derive from electric and magnetic forces. Present-day physicists, such as Dr. Albert Geis of Germany, independently arrive at the same conclusion. We now know that all the workings of the universe can be described using electromagnetic phenomena alone.